Well, this video is about the Flysky FSI-8, and before I get into it, I want to go over some of the history of Flysky because I'm kind of interested as to where it falls in the scheme of things and in the history. Let me first turn on the light. These show up better with the light on, and we have the CT6B, which was my first Flysky radio. It's a good radio, but to change from one channel to, or from one plane to another, you had to go in and do computer program change on it. And then there was the Flysky 9X, quite a step up, much more expensive radio, but had 8 channels, and it was a pretty good radio, had the menu, the screen. And then I moved up to the i6. I really liked the thumb wheel on the i6 because it was a nice way to do operations. The problem with it was that it did not have the range and error correction that I needed, and I had trouble because I fly fairly near a cell phone tower. And so to try to get one with better range, I had read about the Flysky i6, and this is an i6X, and the i6X had the advantage of not just 6 channels or 8 like the 9X, but you could actually go to 10 with the secret menu that is built into it. 10 channels, and it has 10 a combination of 10 function items, controls, 4 switches, 2 knobs, and the regular 4 channels of the gimbals. And then I was curious about the i8. I have seen no evaluations. I have a unboxing that I put up. It's the only thing on the YouTube about this radio. I didn't like the red bezel, and I didn't like the red Flysky emblem and the black knobs, so I thought, well, I can do something with that. So I modified mine, and here's what it looks like. I think it's a much better looking radio, and I think Flysky should immediately do this change to theirs. But let's get into the operations of this radio, and I will turn on the menu. First I'll turn off the light so that the menu furnishes the light that's needed. I've got the throttle up, and we'll show you what happens when first you have to push the 2 power buttons to turn it on, which is a good safety feature. And see what it says? For your safety, place all switches, blah blah blah. Here, let's turn the throttle off. And then it comes up. And we've got transmitter voltage. It'll tell you receiver voltage when you have a receiver on. Down here we have this functions button, and this is a touch screen. I can touch that and it will go to, whoops, I didn't want to go there. One thing about this particular radio, and I think it's a defectiveness, you can't push the return key and get it to do anything, but if you use the included stylus, you can get back. And now let's push this, and we go to menus. We have 12 menus here, and then there's a second page of menus. These menus, as you can see, we've got reverse to reverse your servo directions. We've got what is that, endpoints. We've got sub-trims, and let's get the focus up a little better here. We've got trims, exponential, aileron rudder. We've got throttle delay, throttle curve, rudder to aileron, throttle down, auxiliary channels, and the channels delay. Then by the touchscreen you can roll this screen over to the next set of menus. It has 2 pages of menus, and the other page has these menus, which are linear mixes, conditions, airplane structure. You can actually change like where your control surfaces are in that one. That's pretty cool. Timers, set various timers for functions. Trainer mode, and display servos. I always like that. Models, that's where you select your different model. And receiver setup and system. I'm not going to go extensively into how all these work, because if you look at an i10, and there are lots of YouTubes about the i10, you will see how those work. But I do want to show you one interesting difference. You'll notice the little yellow circles around these icons. If you look on the box that this radio came in, you will find that they are square on a blue background. And by the way, the little dot here tells you that you're on the first page of menu, and then there's a second page and a third page. But on this radio, there's only 2 pages. You have to go to the i10 before you get the third page. And I can go through a little bit of stuff here. Let's see. Get this up to show. What do we want to look at? Oh, I would like to look at display servos. That's always a cool one. Now this radio is 8-channel, so you have 8 functions here that you, and you know, as you move these levers, you will see them move, and that's really good. If you don't know what channel something is, you can throw a lever. This is a 3-position switch that I am setting up. It has 2 3-position switches. It has a momentary, up here is a momentary switch, and another 3-position switch over here. So there's, and that one is set up on, what channel was that? 5? Yeah, channel 5, which I use for flaps. Let's go into, alright, we went into that menu. Let's, and again, that's handy. What if you wanted to change a control? Well, let's go back, and again, there's something wrong with my display because I can't put my finger there and make it move, but it will move with the stylus if I put it in the right place, which is somewhere down near the bottom. Okay, we've got receiver setup. We don't want on that menu. Let's go back to the previous menu. Let's see, endpoints, trams, exponential, auxiliary channels. Yeah, that's where we want to go. Now this is pretty cool. You see these are switch letters as to which of the switches at the top that operates these auxiliary channels, and this would be channel 5, 6, 7, and 8. And what if I want to change this from switch C to some other thing? Just do that and go to control, and any button that I push, it becomes that one. And then to save that change, I would go over to just return. That saves it, and now that is the new, see, switch G. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, switch G is the new saving on that. Let me go through that again. If we wanted to change controls, we'd do that, and then we will select which, and it's got all the switches, and it even has I guess you can probably set it up. Say I wanted to set it up on my elevator. Yeah, it lets me set it up on the elevator, which is, I really don't want that, so let's undo that, go back to switch G. But so you can even redesignate what your gimbal controls do, or it'll do what they normally do, plus the auxiliary function, which is an interesting capability. If I want to lock this stuff down, I push this one, and all that, you can't change things anymore. and then again return out of here, and those things that I've done will be saved. And I'm there, and then of course, like I say, I can go to the second memory by just sweeping across here, and let's see again what those memory items are. We've got airplane structure. Again, that's an interesting one, because if you have something that has elevons or whatever, you can program that in there. Linear mixes, conditions. I think it's if you have various numbers of knobs, various ways it'll do other functions, effectively giving you more than the number of channels it has. Models. Here's the menu for the models, the things that you can do. I've named this plane a P51-1 because that one is the one that I've only one I've programmed in yet. And you can do copy model, which if I said, well, all of these functions are basically what I like on Model 1, I'll copy them to Model 2, 3, whatever, anything through the 20 models that this thing has. And this again is just an overview of the transmitter, and I will turn the light back on so you can see the controls. Basically, it is so much like the i10, other than less menus, that I would say, you know, you can look at the i10 and see how the way that this radio works. One of the things I do not like about it is this is the trim way up here for the elevator, and this is the trim here for the throttle. Normally they're center of the gimbal, but since we have this larger screen, we can't use that, so they moved them, and that might be a little hard to get used to when you're flying. Say I want to change my elevator trim, and I'm kind of reaching over here. I'm not going to find it. I've got it way up there. I think that's something you can get used to. Another thing different about it from the i10, the i10 has over here on the side where this red plastic area is, the i10 has a slider, and that's on both sides. That would be, I guess, like a thumb knob that you can just change, which you could do while you were flying, and that would be no problem. Now I think let me go back to the main menu here. No SD card. No, I don't want to save it, so okay. It'll let you save the models that you have saved to memory, and you can load them in later on an SD card, which is another function. So it does have some functions. Uses the same receivers as the Flysky i8 and the 9X. They all use the AFHDS2A receivers that have the error correction, and that's better for correcting out interference. You can get better range with this radio. Recently did a test versus 9X versus i6, and the i6X beat it considerably. Now I just wanted to talk a little bit about some recommendations to Flysky on this radio, as well as comparisons with the other radios. And where does this radio fit in the world of Flysky radios? For instance, the FSI-8 costs twice as much as the FSI-6X and has 2 fewer channels than the enabled i6X. In this area, the i6X is clearly superior to the FSI-8. Therefore, I recommend that Flysky immediately make provisions for providing the channel expansion module that the FSI-10 has available for purchase with the i8. And I believe that gives you 6 extra channels. If this radio had then total 14 channels, then it would have that advantage over the i6X. Although, you know, who's going to use 14 channels? I don't know, but it shouldn't have less. And or provide an immediate firmware update that will increase the channels to at least 12, unless Flysky does not want to sell the i8s. The i8 is larger and heavier than the i6. Let me move these two together and I'll show you that. That is a factor. I really like the size of the i6, and you can see clearly how much smaller it is than the i10, and they're both thin radios, so they're about the same thickness. Then turn that light back off and continue reading my evaluation notes. Let's see, the i8 is larger and heavier than the i6. The FSi8 has a rechargeable LiPo battery, which has pros and cons. The LiPo USB charge port, like the FSi10, is fragile and can break readily. This would mean that the user would not be able to charge the battery, and there's no provision for substituting AA batteries. I believe the i6X, with the long-lasting, cheap AA battery, 4 AA batteries, has the advantage here. It only takes 4 AA batteries. The old 9X had 8. I believe that the FSi6, I also recommend that Flysky immediately fix the well-known problem with the weak mounting of the small USB connector, that's the battery charge connector in the transmitter, or provide provisions for use of 4 AA batteries. The touchscreen menu for the FSi8 provides some additional capabilities above that of the FSi6, but less than the FSi10. So clearly, and I'll get more into that later, so clearly it is not as good as the i10, but in this area it has a slight advantage over the FSi6-8. It has more functional capabilities. The FSi8 uses the same receivers as the FSi6 and the FSi10, so no advantage to either there. The FSi8 has controversial styling with this red bezel and Flysky logo. I personally find this styling makes the transmitter not only look cheap, but also makes it look ugly cheap. In fact, as I've demonstrated, it looks so bad that I've personally modified mine by painting the bezel and the FS logo with chrome paint. And I also replaced the black knobs with chrome-plated knobs. It looks much better. The transmitter's saying, "It's been on a long time, shut me off." It's another feature that it has. Of course, the FSi6 has that too, unless you move the stick, and then it'll be quiet. So let's see. I personally recommend that Flysky immediately makes similar changes to the FSi8 appearance and styling. And then I talk about the recent range test where the I expect this i8 has the same kind of range as the FSi6, better than the FST6, and I assume it's that good, so they both have the HDS2A receivers, so the i8 would have this advantage over the T6 and the 9X, but not over the i6 or the i10. There are very few FSi8s currently in use by RC pilots, and the FSi6 and i6X have been widely accepted and are popular. There's lots of aftermarket support, including the famous Ben Bojangles firmware upgrade that enables even the i6 non-X to be flashed to 10 channels. I've done that personally and it works well. So the advantage goes to the i6 and i6X in this area. The trim buttons for the throttle and elevator in both the i8 and i10 are offset from the standard gimbal center. The advantage goes to the FSi6 there also over both of these radios. Although the larger screen has advantages too. Maybe that's offsetting. I don't know. If you crash a plane because of it, it's probably not. All i6, i6Xs, i8s, and i10s have the 20 model memory. No advantage to the i8 there. Another area where Flysky should improve both the i8 and i10 to have more model memory than the i6 and i6X. I personally have lots of warbirds that I don't fly often and have filled up the 20 model memory of the i6. I want to use only one transmitter, and I would like more than 20 model memory. I'm sure this is not something that is difficult. The i8 has more control knobs and switches than the i6. It has 11 knobs and switches. There are 3 knobs, pots, potentiometers, 8 switches including 2 3-position switches and a momentary switch, and 5 2-position switches. So the advantage is to the i8 over the i6X in this department, but with only 8 channels to the i6X's 10, this is not a great advantage. The extra 3-position switch and the momentary switch are a nice extra slight advantage. Another difference between the i8 and the i10 is the number of menu icons functions. The i8 has 21 and the latest i10 has 28. A little caution here, the Turnigy shown on Hobby King only shows 26 icons. So if you're going to get an i10, you might want to check that out. It might be that way on the older Flysky i10s also. One of the extra 2 functions on the latest i10 is a spectrum analyzer. This function shows the magnitude of other signals filling the bandwidth where you are. This could be very useful if you're in a signal saturated area. I've had interference problems near my local cell phone tower, and I expect that spectrum analyzer function would show the threat. Summary: based on the comparisons, I think sales prospects for the FSI-8 are bleak. The 10-channel FS i6 and i6X have much lower cost, smaller size, lighter weight, more channels. It's just a much better value than the ugly 8-channel FSI-8. If Flysky were to make the recommended changes, I believe there is a market for the i8, but without them, I predict its demise due to lack of interest, as demonstrated so far by the RC community at large. This is not to say it is a bad transmitter. On the contrary, it's a good transmitter. It's just lacking in the price competitiveness area with the very capable FS i6 and i6X. Thank you, and that concludes the video.